Hi, Tim Sobie here on my day off at my office, an improv demonstration of how forces pass through the skeleton during standing and walking, and getting a sense of inner scaffolding of our skeleton for efficient use and support. Let's look at our 3D model. When we take a step through the world, we make impact on the outer side of our foot. Ground reaction, anti-gravity forces go through bones. Look, broad, narrow, broad, broad, narrow, broad, narrow, broad. And then through here, an inner bridge is a hidden dimension that's often not seen because we have organs, bladder, intestine, prostate versus uterine, depending on gender. And we think leg and back, but the pelvis gets missed. If we extract organs, just for demonstration purposes only, and we extend a sense of how this inner bridge, inner ilius, like a pelvis within a pelvis, this inner ilium goes from narrow to broad, crosses midline as we take a step, otherwise you'd be stuck in our tracks, goes up the opposite side of the spine column, not the front vertebrae, these are marrow-filled, not the back end of the vertebrae, these have muscle attachments, but where each wing attaches to each vertebrae segment, that is known as the pedicle of the transverse process, they ascend as a chain of pedicles, shall we say, up where the ribs intersect, costal margins, through the side wings of the neck, through the base of the skull, into the inner ear surrounding temporal bone, which would be known as the temporal bone, the densest bone in the entire body. And of course, just above that, we have our brain hemispheres, temporal lobe. If we were horned animals like cattle and bovine species, we'd have horns on our head, might dissipate the opposite direction down through the chain. So that's what happens with the initial stance phase of walking. It goes through the pelvis, the opposite side, to counterbalance. As we step through with walking, and advance forward, if the forces went through the opposite side, we'd be knocked over. Instead, as we step through and advance forward, the forces go through the same side of the skeleton, inner bridge of the pelvis, through the same side of, ipsilateral is what would be called, the chain of pedicles of the spine, through the skull base and out the top. So there's a continuity of skeletal architecture known as bony trabeculae, the densest areas of bone formation, reinforced through lines of gravity, conditioning bone growth, and sense of stability and balance and harmony between segments, vital relationships between. So that's one demonstration. We come close to this graphic. This is a CD that was given to me through Dr. Christopher Powers at University of Southern California's Biomechanics Lab. It was a course for physical therapists, Washington Physical Therapy Association, about lower quadrikinetic chain biomechanics. He was emphasizing how the knee decelerates upon stance phase to absorb forces at the high point of the hip. If we were just analyze gait by just watching real-time video footage, on the left here is the biomechanics lab, a special floor tile known as a force plate. This motion camera detecting markers on her legs and reconstructing a skeleton image right here on the left side. Of course, in real time, nothing can be discerned other than a blip, 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 blip. There it is. We slow time down. Let's go see if I can stop her in her tracks right about there. Let's backtrack a little bit. So as we advance onto our leg for stance phase, the yellow arrow represents ground reaction forces, anti-gravity through our bones. Again, maybe the knee decelerates, finds its neutral stance. But what's interesting is how the arrow goes inside the pelvis, not outside. We rotate the skeleton image this direction. Most people refer to this as small of the back. What a vulnerable term. Sacroiliac joint, low back pain there. But if we rotate to look at the opposite side, this inner bridge is something that's quite robust. We could envision, like I saw on the skeleton model earlier, if she had horns on her head, not just markers on her leg over here, but kinesthetic tag markers all the way up the skeletal chain, we would see a situation where it'd be outer edge of foot crossing midline up the left side of the spine column and through her left inner ear, with the pelvis dropping down on that side momentarily. And now, if we look at a model of a pelvis itself here, you can see that if I shine the light through the outer rim of the pelvis, thumbs up. You can see my thumb here, perhaps, right? Mm-hmm. But the lower shield, you don't see my hand. This is one of the densest bones in the lower body. Call this an inner bridge, a pelvis within a pelvis. And it's almost like a vortex of an inverse funnel. It's like a broad area that becomes very broad here. But most people think of the small of their back as something that's the size of a dime. It's actually quite large, the longest single joint in the body, iliosacral joint. If we take the hemipelvis off here, we can reveal the joint surface. It's like the palm of our hand just fits. And in fact, my thumb even fits to go up. If we simulate walking, taking a step on the heel strike into our initial stance, and I'm whittling wood across the inner bridge of the pelvis, it goes directly across. And that's what we see here. If I tilt the pelvis forward, as if going through our instep to complete our stance of walking, it doesn't go across so easy if I'm whittling wood. The path of least resistance seems to go up. And notice that's a smaller surface area. Let's go back and see how this model, real-world anatomical model, can be simulated here with walking. So here we are close to the screen, Aaron, and that's the stance phase of walking. We're exclusively on our right leg. As we advance forward in time, the gravity line dissipates back into earth. And then as she goes to advance forward, her swing phase of walking, the opposite side, into her instep, you can see the arrow emerges again from push-off. But now the arrow emerges, notice it's slightly behind her. Momentum has taken her forward. And it's a lesser magnitude because momentum has taken her forward. You can see it's a lower bridge here. And if we turn to look at a frontal plane view, we see the arrow doesn't cross midline. It's more on the same side of the spine column. Crosses midline a little bit because, of course, the spine is medial to the inner bridge of the pelvis. But again, if she had horns on top of her head, and we visualized stepping through, it would go through the inner bridge, up the same side of the spine, the same horn. That's stepping through. And that, of course, is indicated in the inner architecture of the bone surfaces, too. So there's a certain proportionality of movement that can be experienced through Feldenkrais method approaches to internalize this external experience of visualization through touch and movement and table sessions to link inner ear through pelvis hips, head opposite pelvis, a major principle. So there's the stance phase, and there's a propulsion phase through a different kind of core of skeleton, maybe just more clinically important than core muscles with standing and walking. So I look forward to presenting this at University of Colorado Boulder, in addition to other tools and references for virtual reality bones, internalized through imagery for more improved function in standing and walking. Thank you.